Welcome to the Real Chili Podcast.
And the Golden Eagles of Marquette University in Milwaukee are bound for the Final Four for only the third time ever.
5 seconds left. Marquette down by one, trying to avoid the upset. Blue the drive, the left hand. It's good. 1 second to play. Vander Blue has put Marquette in front by one.
And I want to win every day as basketball players, as students, and I want to win every day, most importantly, as people.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Chili Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lavender. I'm joined by the incorrigible Brian Henry and Mr. Pete Mohan. How you doing, fellas?
Incorrigible? I'm not sure how to interpret that, but that's fine, and we'll move on.
Marquette got a good victory tonight, the last in the non-conference season for Marquette, a 92-51 victory over the American University Eagles. Marquette more than covered the spread. We had a 29-point performance from Sam Hauser, where he shot 7 of 9 from the three-point line, 8 of 10 from the field. This was a feel-good game for Marquette. We got to see a lot from Harry Froling. So I kind of want to kick it off by throwing it to y'all. And what do you take from this game? There was so much positive kind of all around. What was the thing that stuck out to you is the clock wound down on this game, aside from Cam Murata getting 4 minutes?
Shouts to Cam. Way to get in there. Call him by his real name, too. It's Killer Cam Murata. That was an offensive clinic. I mean, American couldn't do much to mount any defensive effort. 23 assists on there, 30 made baskets, 14 threes. I mean, when Marquette plays inferior competition, this is what it looks like. And people, it's a problem playing against the guards that we have with Rousey and Howard. And we were able to let our bigs get off a little bit tonight. It was real nice to see Theo do what he did. It was nice to see Harry Froling get involved. Obviously, those two got to get a little more clock tonight. Matt Helt sat a touch more because we got to get more from those guys. That was really the biggest takeaway. This is what they should have done. American really didn't have the roster to mount any sort of comeback. No one got hurt, thank God, despite Rousey getting dinged up again with a few more stitches. But it was what it was supposed to be.
And American only ended up – so American, you mentioned this inferior opponent. They're the second worst team, according to Ken Pom, that we're going to play this year. They only put
Their brand is suffering.
Yeah. So American only put up 21 points in the second half, and I think they only had 10 with about 8 minutes left to go. Anyway, this was an offensive clinic. Pete Mohan, what did you – I know we were kind of going back and forth through text, and one of the things we wanted to do was highlight Howard and Rousey, and as it turns out, Sam Hauser was just splashing from all over the court.
Well, what I like to see is our offensive balance and our shooting is primed and ready to go for the Big East season. We shot 50% from 3, 14 out of 28. We took more threes and had more free throws than we did 2-point attempts. How about that? So this team is doing a good job of playing to its strengths right now on the offensive end, making sure its shots are from the right parts of the court. If Marquette's able to draw fouls during the Big East season, they will be a tough team to beat because they're already lethal from the perimeter. But if we're able to put other teams' bigs in trouble, that'll be a huge asset for Marquette going forward, especially the way we shoot free throws.
Mike, it cannot be overstated, and this is nothing new, but the fact that this team has a legitimate third scorer in Sam Hauser, and I don't even think it's fair to give him the title.
Go ahead, call him a triumvirate.
I don't even. Well, you can call him right. I don't think it's fair to call him a third scorer. I mean, he can be a primary scorer. He's good enough to do it.
Well, he had 29 tonight,
right, and it's the fourth time this season already. He's had 20 or fifth time, pardon me. He's had 20 or more. He's obviously able to carry the load offensively if he needs to in a game. That's a huge advantage. It's not just Howard and Rousey jacking up shots. He can beat you too. And the fact that we have 3, not that we needed to see today to believe that, but that obviously it's a good to be reminded that going into Big East season.
We're talking about all this prolific offensive performance with a caveat that we played against an inferior opponent against American. One of the reasons that I tuned in, and Brian, you were mentioning this during the our text chain during the game, is that Howard and Rousey, and sometimes Hauser, certainly tonight, are appointment viewing. You know they're going to do something special, and it's almost like you have to tune in to see what it's going to be, right?
I don't want the fan base to take for granted what they're watching right now. It's not to say that this is necessarily historic. Look, I mean, they do have their limitations, obviously, but they are wildly entertaining. We both went to school during the four-year run of Matthews, McNeil, and James, and I would argue these two were as fun to watch as those three were together. Not saying they're necessarily better. Obviously, Marquette's had other great backcourt combos. Wade and Diener jumps out. You can pick out numerous guys in the 70s and 80s. But this current pair is worth tuning in every night, or if you live in the Milwaukee, Chicago area, getting yourself to the building. I mean, Pete, I mean, I think it's as entertaining a backcourt as we've had since we've all been covering the team for a few years.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned those trios. You know, this team is amazing to watch. It doesn't matter who the opponent is.
But those two are the tip of the spear.
Yeah, I don't want to take away from Sam because he's been amazing. But you're right. It is those two, and it's a little gimmicky, and but that's okay.
What's gimmicky?
Having two small point guard type guys. Combo guards.
I don't think we're winning the national title with the two of them, but they're still really fun to watch on a night in, night out basis.
Well, it's just something different that teams have to scheme for,
Yes.
This is not a team that other teams have seen, other than, actually, the interview I just did with the Xavier correspondent. We talked about how they faced off against Arizona State, and they have two 6'1" dynamic guards, and that was the only game Xavier lost. So Xavier, they got to schedule a team who actually kind of looks like us. So that's why I'm a little nervous for that game coming up. Outside of maybe Arizona State, there are very few teams with a diminutive, firepower throwing backcourt like we have.
I saw Brian Henry's eyes light up when you said Arizona State. He was ready to dive in there. He was ready to dive in.
I have had the opportunity to see them in person this year. I live out in Phoenix, for those that aren't aware. Went and saw them this past Sunday. They're legit. I don't know if they're necessarily going to stay in the top 5 all season, but they're damn good. And those two guards, one of which is a freshman, they light it up. They're similar to Marquette in the way that they shoot the ball. I agree with that assessment and how that matchup might be against Xavier because they are very similar.
We mentioned that Howard and Rousey and Hauser are appointment viewing for this Marquette team, and everything. I agree with everything you fellas just said. For this game tonight against American, the reason that I tuned in is, one, so I could do this effectively on the podcast, but two, I wanted to see what Harry Froling looked like. Harry Froling only got 3 minutes in his first game.
Why didn't Wojo tell us not to watch the Northern Illinois game then? I mean, what the hell? We all tuned in to see it there.
He would make a great producer for a reality TV show. The way he made us, he led us on to that second episode of the Froling show.
He absolutely did. Oh yeah, it was great.
It's part of his ploy to get more fans in the seats, right?
I think we can go ahead and say that Wojo went and put the shrimp on the bobby in this game.
Oh, jeez.
That was terrible. That was absolutely awful.
I'm keeping it in.
Yes.
So Harry Froling only had 3 minutes in his first game earlier in the week, had 21 minutes in this game. He shot 1 for 5 from the 3-point line. The first one went in. He went cold after that. Brian, I think you made the point during the game where he demonstrated the ability to do the shot fake at the 3-point line and drive to the hole. The interesting thing for me and Froling is, one, we're looking at how these lineups are going to shake out, and that's going to continue to work out. But for me, what's exciting is we've gone from the beginning of the year when we had Matt Helt, who is limited offensively, although he tries like hell, to now where we've got Theo, who is growing into his own, who can play defense. He
was great today.
And he was great against Northern Illinois. So, again, Look at the talent level. It's going to change when we get into the Big East, but we have gone from a situation where when we started this season, it was just Matt Helt, and now we've got 3 viable options at center that give us a lot of depth and really change the way teams have to defend us.
One thing that was mentioned maybe a little bit by Wojo or hinted at about his game was that he's a better passer than we might expect, and that kind of showed up tonight. He had 4 assists among actually 5 different Marquette players that had over 3 assists tonight. So great job sharing the ball, but you could see how they would utilize him a little bit out of the high post, and a few of his passes were maybe a little astray. I think maybe some of Marcus's misses could be attributed to low passes from Harry or something like that. He's just getting a feel for his teammates still, but I like that he's looking to pass, looking to distribute, because he's big enough that double teams will come, and he has to deliver the ball to those shooters in the slot to shoot the ball and launch if this offense is going to be successful running through him.
I've got no problem with him taking 3-point shots. My only criticism would be it'd be nice to see him make a few more. It was one game tonight, so we're not going to draw a huge conclusion from that. What was he from 3, Mike? 1 for 4, 1 for 5?
1 for 5, yeah.
1 for 5.
7 boards, though.
But he was left open out there, and I can guarantee you with how Hauser, Rousey, and Howard shoot the basketball, he's going to get left open for looks. Teams are going to dare people like him and Sakar Annam to beat them. He will get open shots. Harry Froling is a potential, what's the word I'm looking for here? He could be a launching pad for the team, but I stress could. I wouldn't bet on him being that this season. Well, here's what I mean by launching pad, Mike. If he turns into 10 points and 5 rebounds a game and a guy that's able to play over 20 minutes, I think that launches us from being the 6th or 5th best team in the Big East to potentially the 4th or 3rd. And now you're talking serious seeding jump for the NCAA tournament if you're making. Now you're a fringe team at 11 or 10 to potentially being a 8, 7, or 6, moving up in the standings with those extra wins. He gives us potentially the opportunity to do that. He makes us longer. We should grab more rebounds. We should have more offensive possessions, and he adds another dynamic of shooting. I stress this enough. I think he's going to be good. I don't think he's going to push us there yet, but I like his game and having 2 more years with him after this of what he can develop into.
When you say you don't think he's going to push us there yet, you mean this season?
This season, yes. Yeah. I don't think we're going to look back on the season and go, God, Harry Froling took us to another level from what we were.
Yeah.
I think this team is similar to where it was a year ago. I think its best case scenario is probably being around a 9 to 11 seed in the NCAA tournament and probably finishing 5th or 6th in the Big East. And that'll be a good season, and I'm not belittling that. Harry has the potential, I think, just because of his frame and the position he plays and what it could add to make us higher. I just don't think he's necessarily going to do it.
Here's what I think about the front court is that you have to kind of view it as a whole in terms of the skills brought by Helt, John, and Froling all together, because they bring a little bit something different, each one of them. And Theo John's really been coming along these last few games. His energy's been good, and he's been able to stay somewhat out of foul trouble, so he's going to be demanding minutes the way that he's played. He's been solid on the offensive end and has turned the ball over, and he's been a presence defensively. So I think, we can't forget Theo John pushing into Froling's minutes if he can't hack it on the defensive end, because he frankly looked a little slow at times defensively.
I think Matt Helt's minutes, Mike, what do you think? I think his minutes are going to be the ones that are going to collapse.
Well, that's what I was just looking at. So of the 3 centers, we had Matt Helt came in with the lowest at 14 minutes. So Helt did get the start, and I think that's something that Wojo depends on practice, and he's not going to shake up any starting lineups until he knows damn sure what he's got in Froling and Theo John. But I agree, Helt he's an effort guy, and we love that and we need that. But when you look at Theo, when you look at what Theo can bring, and when you look at what Froling is demonstrating that he can bring, Matt Helt is going to have a tough time battling throughout the course of the season.
I think the question is, how much do we have to play Hauser at the 4?
Correct.
Or do we want to? And that's really what's the controlling factor in how many minutes these guys get.
And a lot of that is going to be dictated by who we're playing. I can tell you this right now. We all watched the 3 games against Seton Hall last year and how we were savaged on the glass by Seton Hall's forwards. Harry Froling just by default is going to have to be on the court more to give us a chance at a few more of those balls. I think that's where Sakar might lose a few minutes playing. Even though Sakar's our best defender, if you don't have the ball, you don't have a chance to score. We got to be able to grab it coming off the rim. There are going to be games where he's going to get more than 20 minutes of run just because of who we're playing.
Perfect segue there, and this is what I want to end today's podcast on, is we're now done with the non-conference season, and if you split up a basketball season from between the non-conference and the Big East, we're halfway done, and Marquette plays Xavier 2 days after Christmas on December 27th. As Pete Mohan alluded to, we've got a great pod coming to you with an interview with Shannon Russell, Xavier correspondent who covers the team closely. But fellas, as we shift to Big East play, a lot of the dynamics that we've talked about change. It's going to be stiffer competition. The teams know each other. They know what everyone's trying to do much better, and that's going to change what we think about this team. How do you see that playing out? What are you expecting? Not necessarily Xavier previews, but kind of what are you looking for as Marquette enters Big East play?
To finish non-conference play with a 9-3 record, Mike, I think and the wins that we had and the losses that we had. I think you look at Big East Conference play, and the goal for Marquette to be an NCAA tournament lock is an 11-7 record. How that breaks up, who you get your wins and your losses against, I think it's pretty fair. Marquette's going to be a significant underdog in 4 games against Xavier and Villanova, and then you can kind of spread it out on the rest of them. That's, to me, the goal. The goal is to find a way to fight to get to 11-7. I don't think there's necessarily a guarantee that you're going to go 6-0 against St. John's, DePaul, and Georgetown. That's all got to be in the equation. How are you going to get to 11 victories? Because that's going to guarantee you a spot in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think this team is still going to be growing throughout the season. It's a young team, and we've played some tough opponents, but we've played some weak opponents as well, and that's good for getting these younger guys some run and getting them comfortable before we play some actual consistently great competition day in and day out in the Big East Conference. One thing that I'm looking at is that the end of the season, there's kind of a reprieve. Our conference schedule, in terms of its difficulty, is stacked closer towards the beginning. We get Xavier, Nova, all done before January 28th. So the 2 best teams, we play 4 times before the end of January. And it's going to be a major gauntlet for this team, this young team. I'm excited to see how they handle it, but if they come out of that stretch close to 500, they can finish strong against a weaker second half of the schedule.
Before you wrap it up, Mike, can I add one thing?
Go on.
Hey, Dickie Simpkins, please do not offend the people watching on television and telling us that DePaul is going to be in the mix this year and DePaul is going to be better this year. Dickie, brother, please stop it.
Don't feed the trolls, Dickie.
DePaul has been an embarrassment since they entered the league. Until they find players who are remotely competent in playing a building that anyone wants to show up to, I will believe that DePaul is better. Sorry, that's it. I was so dumbfounded by that.
You dug our grave so deep on this jinx right now, though, that we will definitely.
Oh, I know I have, but you know what?
And also on your point regarding an empty building, don't throw stones if you live in a glass house, Brian.
That's a good point. How you're right. I'm going more historically speaking, but you're right.
Sure.
Yeah, you could have hit golf balls into the upper deck of the Bradley Center today.
All right, folks. With that, that's going to do it for us for this episode of the Real Chili Podcast. As we mentioned, we've got a Xavier preview coming up. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Signing off for Pete Mohan and for Brian Henry, I'm Mike Lavender. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Real Chili Podcast.
Be better, Dickie. We expect more.
And we're proud to beat American when we hit a bunch of threes.